Hey guys, in this video the lovely Tim is going to be taking you through international organisations as part of your GCSE Citizenship. Now there are lots of names and acronyms and abbreviations in this video that you're going to need to remember. So to help you remember everything that you have to for your revision, over on my website there are loads of multiple choice questions just waiting for you.
There are several important terms where the definition and being able to use them properly is important in an exam. An MNC, or multinational corporation, is a business operating in multiple countries, such as Ford or McDonald's. An NGO is a non-governmental organisation, an organisation not part of a government which can operate in one country or several countries. Usually, NGOs are charities that rely on public donations, such as Oxfam or Christian Aid. An IGO is an intergovernmental organisation, an organisation which is composed of representatives of several or many governments, such as the UN, the World Health Organization, or the EU. The United Nations, usually known as the UN, was set up by a range of governments after the end of World War II. It aims to prevent conflict and govern the relations between nations. The UN was really the successor to the failed League of Nations between the two world wars. All nations, with a very small number of extreme examples, have either member status or observer status within the UN. The UN comprises several smaller organisations, such as UNESCO or the UNSC, the United Nations Security Council. The UN is funded through the contributions made from member states, which is usually in proportion to their GDP, gross domestic product, or overall economic status. One of the key roles of the UN is the deployment of peacekeeping troops in conflicts, especially civil wars, around the world. The UN also provides a forum for debate and discussion about important issues between countries. NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It is a defense-orientated military alliance and was set up in the early days of the Cold War, around 1950, as a common defense against the USSR and its allied states in Eastern Europe. While initially NATO comprised Western Europe and North America, today it comprises much of Europe and North America, plus allied nations, such as Australia and New Zealand. NATO provides a collective defence for liberal democracies, where an attack on one of them comprises an attack on all. NATO is funded through member contributions. Like the UN, this is proportionate to the economic status of each country, and its military force is gained through the contribution of troops and hardware and expertise by members. The World Trade Organization, or WTO, sets the very basic rules of trade between nations. It attempts to prevent nationalist protectionism, where countries act against trading rules in an effort to shore up or protect their own economy at the expense of others. It attempts to use these rules to resolve trade disputes and prevent them escalating to military conflict. The WTO evolved from GATT, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which was a series of multilateral agreements and treaties following the end of World War II in 1947. GATT rules are still used today by the WTO and by nations across the world as a very basic set of rules for trade. The European Union was initially the European Coal and Steel Community, founded in the 1951 Treaty of Paris. This was followed by the European Community, which was the 1957 Treaty of Rome. Lastly, it became the European Union following the 1993 Maastricht Treaty. Initially, the EU was an economic and trading partnership, but has developed more and more into social and political integration. Initially, there were 6 countries in the EU following the 1957 Treaty of Rome. They were Belgium, France, what was then West Germany, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. The EU now comprises 27 states spanning Europe, not including the UK, which is in a transition period after Brexit, in a process of leaving the EU. There are certain countries in Europe which are notable for not being in the EU, which are Iceland, Norway, and Switzerland. There are several aims of the EU. Its primary objective always was, and continues to be, maintaining peace in Europe following World War II. There had always been a large amount of hostility, especially between Germany and France. And in the space of 100 years, Europe had experienced several major wars, leading to hundreds of thousands of deaths, millions of civilian deaths, especially in World War II. Following on from this, there was a wish for economic unity and free trading arrangements between the member states. Partly, this was to increase economic development in Europe after World War II. Partly, this was to create a powerful economic bloc to rival the US and USSR through the Cold War. Many suspect a wish by the EU to head towards increasing federalism, where member states comprise subnational bodies, not sovereign in themselves, but part of a greater whole, such as in the United States, where the EU becomes the national government. Some people support this head towards federalism. The EU also attempts to promote a European-wide respect for human rights, equality, diversity, democracy, and the rule of law. The EU is not a military alliance, but it does have common foreign policy goals and foreign policy representatives. There are common economic treaties and trading agreements, which make it easier both for member states to trade within themselves, but also for small member states to trade as a bloc with countries outside the EU, such as China and India. Brexit refers to the leaving of the UK from the European Union following a referendum in 2016. This referendum was divisive. Many people in the country now consider themselves one of two groups, either a Remainer, those wishing to remain in the EU, or a Brexiteer or Leaver, those wishing strongly to leave the EU. The 2016 referendum was relatively close. Leave won by a margin of 4%, 52 to 48. Following this result, which was quite unexpected, David Cameron, who had called the referendum, resigned as Prime Minister, making way for Theresa May to win that leadership election, who later herself resigned after struggling with the problem of Brexit and was followed by Boris Johnson in 2019. There are many arguments for both leave and remain. However, some of the most important to give arguments for leave include the following: that the UK had given up sovereignty to the EU, which was considered to be unacceptable. The EU was overly complex and bureaucratic. It was an enormous organisation employing many thousands of people. Because of this, being a member of the EU was expensive and required large financial contributions in upkeep. Being a member of the EU, the Leave campaign maintained, led to increased migration into the UK. This has since been widely disputed, and claims made by the Leave campaign during the referendum have repeatedly been shown to be factually incorrect. For Remain, the arguments include that being a member of the EU was financially advantageous in terms of trade to the UK. It gave the UK increased trading opportunities with the countries of Europe. The EU was fundamental in the protection of worker and consumer rights, and also of the environment. EU legislation was extremely useful and used by the UK government in setting employment law from the 1970s right through to 2019. The EU represented collective economic safety in a complex and uncertain world, where other countries such as China and India were in the ascendancy. And lastly, by being a member of the EU, people on the Remain side claimed we were able to direct and contribute to it, and if we were unhappy with it, we were able to work from the inside to reform it. As far as GCSE Citizenship goes, currently, Brexit is not on the specification. However, it is likely when the new specification comes, or in future exams, it will be mentioned. It's worth having a reasonable background knowledge and being able to explain and argue for both sides of the argument.
Ouch! This is why in some videos I have unexplained scratches.